Imagine waking before the first light touches the frozen sky. The air bites your lungs like a wolf's teeth. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a mammoth calls to its herd, a sound so deep it trembles in your chest. Your children sleep behind you, curled inside furs stained with smoke and blood. Your mate sharpens a blade of flint beside the dying embers. And you are the wall between them and a world of giants. This is the Ice Age. And if you had been born into it, the question is not whether you would have been brave. The question is whether you would have survived long enough to learn what bravery even means. 40,000 years ago, our ancestors walked a planet that no longer exists. Ice sheets taller than mountains crawled across continents. The oceans were lower, the forests thinner, the nights longer and colder than anything a modern human has ever felt. But the true terror of that world was not the cold. It was what walked through it. Woolly mammoths the size of houses. Cave lions heavier than a modern polar bear. Short-faced bears that stood taller than a doorway when they rose on their hind legs. Dire wolves hunting in packs of 20. Saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than a human hand. And the giant ground sloths, lumbering tanks of muscle and claw that could gut a man with a single swipe. Your family did not live in villages. There were no walls, no gates, no warning bells. Home was a cave mouth, a rock shelter, a ring of hide stretched over mammoth ribs. You slept with one ear open. You woke to the sound of every snapping branch. Every night was a gamble, and every morning that your children breathed was a small and holy miracle. So ask yourself, honestly, could you have done it? Could you have kept them alive? Start with the hunt. You did not eat because a store was open. You ate because you walked, sometimes for days, tracking a single animal through snow that swallowed your legs to the thigh. You learned to read the broken twig, the frozen dropping, the hair caught on bark. You learned the wind, because if the wind betrayed you, the prey vanished, and your family went hungry another night. A single mammoth could feed a clan for a month. But to kill one, you had to get close. Not rifle close. Not arrow close. Spear close. Close enough to see its eye. Close enough for it to see yours. Picture it. 6 men, maybe 8, crouched in the grass. The mammoth turns. The ground shakes. Someone throws first, and the spear sinks into the shoulder, and the giant screams, and now every decision happens in heartbeats. Run wrong, and you are paced beneath a foot the size of a table. Hesitate, and your brother dies in front of you. The hunt was not sport. It was war, and the enemy weighed 10 tons. Now imagine the walk home. You are bleeding. 2 of your hunting brothers did not come back. You are carrying what you could cut free before the wolves arrived, because the wolves always arrive. The sun is setting. You still have miles to go, and somewhere in those miles, the cave lions are waking up. The cave lion was the apex of the Ice Age. Larger than any lion alive today, built for cold, silent in the snow, patient as stone. It did not fear fire the way modern predators do. It had learned what humans were, and it had learned that humans could be taken. Children who wandered too far from the fire. Elders who fell behind on the march. Hunters walking home alone in the dusk. The bones tell the story. Archaeologists have found human skulls with the clean puncture wounds of feline canines. Our ancestors were not always the hunters. Sometimes they were the meal. And so you learned fire. Fire was not comfort. Fire was survival. Fire was the one weapon the giants respected. You learned to feed it in the wind, to carry its embers wrapped in moss when you moved camp, to build it high at the cave mouth when the snow came down and the eyes began to glow in the dark beyond the light. A family without fire was a family already dead. They just did not know it yet. But fire was not enough. You needed tools. And here is something that should stop you cold. The people of the Ice Age were not brutes. They were engineers. They chipped flint into blades sharper than surgical steel. They lashed stone points to shafts of seasoned wood with sinew and pitch. They carved needles from bone and stitched hides into clothing tailored to each body. They built shelters from mammoth bones because wood was scarce. They made lamps from hollowed stone and animal fat. They painted the walls of their caves with a mastery that still stops modern artists in their tracks. They were us. Every bit as clever. Every bit as dreaming. just born into a world that would have broken most of us in a week. Now picture the winter. The real winter. Not a cold snap. Not a storm. A season of darkness so long that children were born and grew teeth before they ever saw a full day of sun. Food grew scarce. The herds moved south. The wolves grew bold. The old and the weak began to die, and the family had to choose, quietly, without speaking of it, who ate first and who ate last. These were not cruel choices. They were the choices of people who loved each other enough to survive. A grandmother who gave her portion to her grandson was not giving up. She was buying him one more day. And still, the giants came. A short-faced bear could smell your cooking from 2 miles away. It did not sneak. It did not stalk. It simply walked toward you, because nothing in its world had ever given it a reason to be afraid. To turn a short-faced bear, you needed every hunter in the clan, every torch burning, every spear raised, and a great deal of luck. Sometimes the bear left. Sometimes it did not. And the clan that lost 3 hunters to a single bear might not last the winter. Think for a moment about what that meant for the women. History loves to talk about the hunters, the spear throwers, the men who stood at the mouth of the cave. But the women of the Ice Age were warriors too. They hunted smaller game. They set traps. They defended the fire when the men were gone. They gave birth in the cold with no doctor, no medicine, no certainty that either they or the child would see the next sunrise. They nursed the sick. They prepared the dead. They carried the memory of the clan, the stories, the songs, the knowledge of which plants were food and which were poison, which tracks belonged to prey and which to predator. Without them, no hunter would have lived to grow old. Without them, no child would have learned to speak. They were the quiet backbone of every clan, and their courage was every bit as fierce as any man's. And think about the children. Children in the Ice Age did not play with toys in a safe nursery. They learned to tie knots before they learned to count. They watched their fathers kill. They watched their mothers skin the kill. They learned which scream of a bird meant a hawk overhead and which meant a wolf on the ridge. A 6-year-old could start a fire in driving snow. An 8-year-old could throw a spear hard enough to wound. By 12, a child was not a child anymore. By 12, they were already standing guard. And yet, in the cave paintings, in the tiny carvings of bone and mammoth ivory, we see something that breaks the heart. Toys. Dolls. A little carved bird. A small horse figurine worn smooth by years of a small hand carrying it. Even in a world that tried to kill them, their parents gave them something to love. So could you have defended your family? Could you have stood at the mouth of that cave with a wooden spear in your hands while something ancient and enormous breathed in the dark? Here is the truth. You already carry the blood of those who did. Every human alive today is the descendant of ancestors who looked into the eyes of mammoths and cave lions and did not run. Who buried their dead with flowers and red ochre. Who taught their children to tie a knot, to read a track, to wait for the right moment, to throw the spear with every ounce of their being. You are here because they refused to let the giants have the last word. That strength did not die with them. It sleeps in you, in the way you lift a child, in the way you stand between your family and anything that threatens them, in the quiet, fierce promise you make without words when you look at the people you love. The Ice Age is gone. The giants are gone. The caves stand empty, their paintings waiting for visitors who will never come home to them. But the courage that was forged there, the patience, the cleverness, the terrible tenderness of people who loved each other in a world that wanted them dead, that courage is still here. It is in your hands. It is in your name. It is in the way you refuse, even now, to give up on the ones who depend on you. So ask yourself one more time, could you have defended your family from Ice Age giants? The answer is simple. You already are.